was never easy for me. I was born a poor black child.
Not exactly, but I was poor. But when you're a kid, you're oblivious to being poor. I didn't know we ate potatoes and noodles for dinner because we were poor. I liked it. I didn't know other kids had their own rooms and wore new clothes instead of hand-me-downs. I thought it was normal to walk myself to school at 5 years old and get milk and bread tokens from the school office to eat every day. My childhood was an adventure. With almost no toys, I used my imagination to play outside. I loved it. My dad worked his ass off in a copper mine, and by the time I was an early teenager, we weren't poor since we moved up. By high school, we lived in the low end of middle-class neighborhoods. My dad now worked as a machinist, and I'm grateful for having less in my youth, as I have never lost sight of the virtue of being self-providing and the willingness to bust my ass for it. I've worked full-time since I was 16, and I don't know any other way of spending my time. Even when financially stable, I've worked 8 to 10 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week. I'm not working to live, but living to work, because my career is a fulfilling labor of love. Regular time off bores me. I'd rather work a lot, so when I take time away from working, I can afford to do grand things and adventures instead of average things. I went door to door as a kid to wash cars and mow lawns. I started a neighborhood newspaper when I was 10 and sold it for 20 cents a copy, exposing neighborhood scandals like Mr. Duncan wasting water by leaving his sprinklers on and Mrs. Taba leaving her garbage cans on the curb for days. I was shut down by a neighborhood committee. Everyone loved my neighborhood news until they saw their own name in print. During the 70s gas crunch, I sold cheap sodas and snacks to people lined up for hours to get gas on their odd or even days. I was 9 years old and had scraped change to buy a tiny inventory, and within a week had 2 kids working for me. Carl's Jr. gave out music trivia scratchers, and if you scratched off the right answer, you'd win burgers, sodas, or fries. I would charm the counter employees to give me stacks of them, and then call the Tower Records on-staff rock specialists, get the answers, and then sell the winning tickets. I started painting for neighbors when I was 13, and at 14, I was a server at parties for a caterer. I worked retail, fast food, warehouses, and delivery jobs in my late teens while I lived on the streets, flopping wherever I could. When I was 22, I got licensed to drive a tractor-trailer lowboys across the country and saw the heartland, driving through the mountains and prairies of New Mexico, Oklahoma, Arizona, Texas, and Illinois. Sleeping in sleeper cabs, I drove in and out of some tough spots. When my dispatcher had me driving well past the safe and legal amount of hours behind the wheel, I extorted money from him, threatening to abandon their truck somewhere on Interstate 44 if they didn't wire me $1,000. They did, and I left their truck on the highway anyway and hitchhiked home. I went back to construction work, and my commercial construction career is detailed a little in the professional video, and my helping career too. My commercial construction company was started with a $1,500 loan from my uncle, and I wore all the hats. I was foreman, drywaller, laborer, and estimator. I took on any project I could, trying to build a reputation. I often lived on bologna sandwiches and lived in dive motels to do jobs from San Francisco to San Diego. In 3 years, I grew it into earning me $340,000 a year. And within 8 years, I hated it and wanted out. I began my private counseling and coaching practice by giving free workshops on self-improvement, from meditation to stop smoking to losing weight. And when I began offering drug counseling, it was an overnight success. I became a reputable advisor to every type of crisis and disorder. Once upon a time, I was addicted to drugs and sex. I've been a criminal, dope fiend, con man, cheater, and liar. I have an addictive personality disorder, which is a condition of excess. Since I can't choose not to be addicted to stuff, I choose what to be addicted to. I'm no longer addicted to seeking pleasure. Now I'm addicted to fulfillment. And here's my roommate. His name is Chow Chow Bang. Look at the camera and smile. I capture feelings of fulfillment through my role as a father and partner, my counseling, my writing, teaching, speaking, and presenting. I'm a spiritualist, a family man, and I have a restless spirit. Inertia makes me very uncomfortable. I like to work on 3 or 4 projects at a time and to read 2 or 3 books at the same time, switching between them to keep myself engaged. Much of TV bores me, and movies are okay, but I love films. Well-crafted, created films from Orson Welles to Christopher Nolan, from the genius of Kubrick and Inarritu to the brilliance of Alejandro Jodorowsky. Reading is a religion for me. I'm a physics hobbyist, devouring books on the subject, and toured the Einstein Museum and CERN while I was in Switzerland. I need regular doses of bigger picture science and knowledge to keep me from being annoyingly bored. I like art that makes me think and challenges me, and have toured galleries in LA, New York, the Uffizi in Florence. I've seen Rodin and Van Gogh originals, seen Alex Gray live, and have been surprised enough to buy a few pieces of my own. I'm an expert in a few subjects, an enthusiast in several, a hobbyist in many, and curious about anything that is not trivial. This large quantity of life experiences, information, and knowledge can make me come across as a know-it-all, since I can and do have a well-informed opinion about most things. And my disinterest in mundane affairs often makes me seem like a snob, as I need a lot of will to indulge in everyday chit-chat conversations beyond a few minutes. I'm not antisocial, but as a highly introverted man, I'm mostly indifferent to conventional socializing. This indifference to everyday life frustrates a lot of people. I like experiencing things with friends and partners, but I'm comfortable and content doing things on my own and often prefer it. I am fortunate to have a girlfriend who tolerates my solo adventuring and my intensity, and she has willingly journeyed with me to unusual places and entertained my dynamic style of living. My son has always entrusted me to show him the miracles of this world, from backpacking in the Sierras, scuba diving shipwrecks and underground caverns, to front row Metallica shows and our adventures in Germany's Black Forest, train traveling little villages in France, and celebrating 2014's World Cup in Frankfurt and Dusseldorf. He is a fascinating and fun friend. It's been an honor to teach him how the world works, and he teaches me a lot about myself. I am fascinated by the mind, how it works and why it does what it does. I have stood on the shoulders of giants and am in awe of Freud, but I am much more a Jungian, as I appreciate both Western and Eastern philosophies, having consumed Plato, Lao Tzu, Aristotle, Confucius, and Nietzsche, among others. I devoured those works on my own time through my youth and young adulthood. I was reading and writing prolifically by age 4 and placed in advanced learning classes since 2nd grade. Yet I failed math with big F's all the way through high school. I suck hard at math and couldn't dig a square root with a backhoe. I can follow theoretical physics very well, and I'm well informed on string and M theory and fully understand the Heisenberg principle and Einstein's general and special relativity. But looking at a physics equation is nothing but scribbled lines to me. The writers that have inspired and influenced me as an author are Ray Bradbury for my imagination, Steinbeck for structure, style, and vision, Vonnegut, Kerouac, and Hess for their offbeat ways, Toni Morrison and Virginia Woolf for their boldness, Khalil Gibran changed my life, and Hunter Thompson made it okay for me to be myself. People often say that being around me is exhausting because I am a whirlwind of topics, comments, ideas, and adventure. I don't stop, and I can only imagine how exhausting it is to be near me because I am intense and have a well-informed opinion on nearly everything, which can certainly be annoying.